It started with whispers behind closed doors, conversations that never made their way into press conferences or glossy league statements. Caitlin Clark, the brightest light in the WNBA, wasn't just battling on the court. She was fighting a shadow war off it. What looked like hard fouls and aggressive play soon began to take on a darker meaning. Behind the scenes, her representation team was piecing together something far more sinister, the signs of a hostile workplace environment. And now, the whispers have exploded into federal attention that the WNBA can no longer control. The shocking part? This isn't just speculation. Locker room admissions, agent strategies, and federal breadcrumbs tell a story that runs deeper than anyone imagined. Fans saw the clips. Elbows, blindsides, hard fouls. But those moments weren't random accidents or heated mistakes in the heat of competition. They were coordinated. They were intentional. Sophie Cunningham, now Caitlin's teammate, revealed that entire locker room conversations once revolve around showing her what the W really is. That's not basketball strategy. That's cultural targeting disguised as competition. And the consequences are spiraling. Imagine being a rookie stepping into professional spotlight, carrying the hopes of millions, only to discover players plotting ways to make you adjust through violence. These weren't whispers of play her tough defense. They were admissions of premeditated targeting. Cunningham's words exposed a truth fans had long suspected. Caitlin wasn't just being welcomed to the WNBA. She was being hunted. The calculated nature of these conversations drew the attention of not only Clark's team, but also those with the power to elevate it beyond sports into legal scrutiny. But here's where the story becomes explosive. Caitlin Clark's agent isn't just any agent. Her team includes former White House staffers, lawyers who understand federal civil rights law, and strategists who know how to weaponize evidence. Every hit Caitlin took, every uncalled foul, every broadcast replay, it was documented, cataloged, and preserved. This wasn't about filing complaints with the league. It was about building a case so airtight that even federal authorities couldn't ignore it. And once that machine was set in motion, the WNBA's silent strategy was doomed. While fans debated on social media and ESPN replayed highlight reels, Clark's representation was orchestrating a professional counterattack. They didn't just call out rough play. They reframed it as workplace harassment. They didn't just protest officiating. They positioned it as civil rights discrimination. That shift in framing changed everything. Suddenly, this wasn't a sports controversy. It was a federal concern. And when Senator Jim Banks sent a formal letter to Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, it created a paper trail that made ignoring the issue impossible. The WNBA's nightmare was only beginning. That letter wasn't political grandstanding. It was surgical. Its language was legally precise, timed perfectly to align with growing public outrage, and crafted to trigger review processes inside federal agencies. Federal departments don't need to make announcements to begin probing. They don't need press conferences to start quietly asking questions. Clark's treatment had been transformed from an officiating issue into a potential violation of federal workplace protections. And suddenly, the league found itself in a fight not with angry fans or Twitter trends, but with institutions that don't play games. And why was this escalation so effective? Because Caitlin Clark isn't just a player. She's the WNBA's most valuable economic asset. Her arrival sparked a 601% spike in merchandise sales, 170% viewership jumps in her games, and a 366% surge in lead pass subscriptions. These aren't just impressive stats. They represent financial dependency. The league tied its entire growth trajectory to one player. Every uncalled hit against her wasn't just an attack on Caitlin. It was an attack on the WNBA's bottom line. And her agents knew exactly how to exploit that vulnerability. Think about it. When a star is attacked in any league, it's a problem. But when the star, the single largest driver of revenue growth, is systematically targeted, it's a crisis. Clark's representation understood that better than anyone. They didn't need to beg the WNBA for protection. They needed only to connect the dots between economic dependency, cultural targeting, and legal liability. The result? An airtight case that positioned the league as negligent at best and complicit at worst. And in federal law, negligence can be just as damning as intent. Meanwhile, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's silence only made things worse. Each time she failed to respond, every incident ignored, Clark's team added more ammunition to their legal arsenal. This wasn't just about bruises and fouls anymore. It was about institutional indifference. Rebecca Lobo, a respected analyst and former WNBA star, pointed out that fouls against Clark would normally be called in any other context. When selective enforcement becomes cultural policy, it creates exactly the kind of federal vulnerability civil rights lawyers dream about. And Clark's team knew it. The evidence piled higher with every game. Kennedy Carter's blindside hit, Diamond DeShields charging like an NFL linebacker, Marina Mabrey's shove resembling a street brawl, Tina Charles's sneak punch caught only by replay. These weren't isolated moments. They were patterns. And Clark's legal team mapped them meticulously, cross-referencing them with game data, showing she led the league in flagrant fouls drawn, nearly double the next player. That statistical footprint became more than basketball numbers. It became a documented trail of discrimination, one nearly impossible for federal agencies to dismiss. But perhaps the most telling sign came not from game tape, but from the players themselves. The All-Star ballot revealed Clark had shattered fan voting records with over 1.3 million votes. Yet in player-only voting, she ranked 9th among guards. Dick Vitale didn't mince words, calling it pure jealousy. What looked like pettiness to fans looked like harassment indicators to legal experts. When jealousy translates into coordinated targeting and selective enforcement, it stops being sports drama. It becomes a foundation for a harassment case under Title VII workplace law. This is where identity politics enters, and most sports analysts turn away. Caitlin Clark is a straight white woman in a league that is predominantly black and openly LGBTQ+. That shouldn't matter on the court. But former player Candace Wiggins testified years ago that she was bullied out of the league for being straight. Her story was dismissed at the time. Now, re-examined through Clark's treatment, it reads like a warning. Federal law protects against discrimination based on race, sex, and orientation. Whether intended or not, the impact is undeniable. Clark's representation doesn't need to prove that players consciously plotted discrimination. They need only show the impact, that Clark faced systematically harsher treatment than peers under circumstances where protected characteristics intersect. With videos of attacks, statistical proof of targeting, player admissions of locker room strategies, and cultural hostility evident in all-star snubs, the impact case builds itself. And that's exactly why WNBA executives are panicking. Because federal discovery doesn't stop at public clips. It digs into private emails, texts, and memos that could shatter the league's carefully polished image forever. Imagine the subpoenas arriving. Internal emails between referees, league staff, or coaches discussing whether to let things go when Clark is fouled. Texts debating the optics of suspending veteran stars for cheap shots against her. Suddenly, what the league tried to contain as competitive basketball could explode into public proof of systemic negligence. And once those conversations become public, the WNBA's brand of empowerment and equality collapses under the weight of its own contradictions. This isn't just about protecting Caitlin anymore. It's about institutional survival in the face of federal scrutiny. And make no mistake, this has already spilled into mainstream awareness. Jimmy Fallon joked on late-night television, "Protect Caitlin Clark at all costs." That wasn't just comedy. It was cultural penetration. Millions of casual viewers who don't follow women's basketball suddenly understood this story as one of basic fairness. Then came Stephen A. Smith, warning that Donald Trump could seize the issue as a political rallying point. Love him or hate him, Trump has shown a willingness to weaponize cultural sports controversies. If he jumps in, federal attention becomes unavoidable. This escalation follows a classic trajectory: congressional inquiry, media amplification, federal inquiry. The first two are already underway. The Wall Street Journal's decision to publish civil rights framing wasn't an accident. It was strategic placement in business media where sponsors and federal officials pay attention. The timing of these articles, the congressional letter, and lawyer-driven analysis across social media wasn't random. It was coordinated crisis management. Clark's team wasn't just reacting to attacks. They were orchestrating a federal case with timing so perfect it left WNBA leadership cornered and exposed. Even sponsors are beginning to feel the heat. Brands align with leagues to bask in excellence and inspiration, not discrimination and chaos. Every viral clip of Clark taking unpunished hits chips away at that image. Every headline about federal oversight makes sponsors nervous. Combine that with upcoming collective bargaining negotiations, and the league faces pressure from every angle. Clark's representation knows this. By aligning player safety with sponsor confidence and CBA leverage, they've created a situation where the WNBA cannot afford silence any longer. Every day of delay increases the damage. And here's where Clark's team made their most brilliant move. They aren't asking for special treatment. They're demanding equal enforcement of existing rules. That's a position no league can offend against without admitting incompetence or discrimination. If fouls are fouls for everyone else, why aren't they fouls for Caitlin Clark? That question haunts every official, every league executive, every sponsor. It's a trap the WNBA walked into through silence, and one that now threatens to unravel its growth, its credibility, and its very legitimacy as a professional sports league. The social media data tells the story too. Content creators framing Clark's situation as federal investigation or league corruption are generating massive engagement. Algorithms favor this narrative, amplifying it far beyond traditional sports coverage. Even Dave Portnoy and Barstool Sports are driving the controversy into demographics that don't usually follow the WNBA. The conversation has shifted from fan outrage to legal analysis. Lawyers on TikTok and YouTube are breaking down Title VII implications, making Clark's case feel less like sports drama and more like a landmark federal civil rights battle unfolding in real time. And in many ways, that's exactly what has become. Independent voices like Cunningham's admissions and Rebecca Lobo's on-air breakdowns validate the legal claims. Statistical evidence and cultural hostility in player ballots strengthen the case. Federal laws provide the framework. Public pressure forces attention. And federal agencies now have the justification to act, regardless of whether the WNBA wants them to or not. That's the nightmare facing Commissioner Engelbert. Once federal momentum starts, leagues don't control the timeline. They don't dictate the narrative. And they don't escape without consequences. The WNBA had months to get ahead of this. They could have cracked down on dangerous play, suspended repeat offenders, and made clear that Clark would be treated like any other player. Instead, they chose silence. Now, every move they make looks reactive rather than proactive. Sponsors are nervous. Players are divided. Fans are furious. And federal eyes are watching. This isn't just about Clark's safety anymore. It's about whether the WNBA can even survive the storm it created through neglect, jealousy, and the illusion that silence would keep everything under control. The irony is stark. Protecting Caitlin Clark was never about bending rules for her. It was about enforcing them consistently. That's the bare minimum for any professional league. Yet by failing to do even that, the WNBA created the perfect storm of legal, cultural, and economic vulnerability. And Caitlin's team, equipped with elite strategists, seized the opportunity. They turned institutional failure into federal pressure. They turned jealousy into evidence. They turned silence into liability. And now, the WNBA faces a reckoning unlike anything women's sports has seen in modern history. And here's the chilling reality. This isn't going away. Federal attention doesn't move on sports cycles. It doesn't fade with a new highlight reel. Congressional letters require responses. Civil rights frameworks demand evaluation. Economic pressure forces resolution. The WNBA can't outwait this. They can't bury it under media spin. The transformation from officiating complaints to federal concern is complete, and the league's future depends on whether it can evolve into a truly professional, equitable institution, or collapse as a cautionary tale of what happens when you fail to protect your brightest star. But here's where things get even darker. Beyond the fouls, beyond the silence, beyond the federal letters, lies the discovery process, the phase that WNBA executives dread most. Discovery doesn't just expose what happened. It uncovers intent. Imagine the possibility of internal communications surfacing, showing discussions about teaching Clark a lesson or acknowledging the economic risk of protecting her too much. Those words, once dragged into the light, would do more than embarrass the league. They would confirm suspicions of systemic negligence and ignite a media firestorm that no PR spin could contain. And federal investigators won't stop at surface-level evidence. They'll dig into emails, texts, referee instructions, and even player-to-player communications. Every message becomes a potential smoking gun. Did coaches encourage rough play? Did executives calculate the optics of suspending veterans for targeting Clark? Were referees ever told to let them play when she was involved? Once those files are subpoenaed, the WNBA's culture isn't just under review, it's under oath. And if even a fraction of those suspicions prove true, this won't end as a league controversy. It will end as a federal case study in failure. Sponsors know this too. Corporations that poured millions into the WNBA during Clark's meteoric rise are suddenly rethinking their position. Brands thrive on inspiration, empowerment, and positive optics. But if their logos appear alongside headlines about discrimination, harassment, and federal oversight, the association becomes toxic. Already, whispers are spreading among marketing insiders. Sponsors are nervous. They want answers, reassurances, and concrete action. Because for every day the league delays, the risk of becoming collateral damage in the scandal grows. And no billion-dollar brand will gamble its reputation for the sake of Engelbert's silence. Meanwhile, Clark herself remains trapped at the center of the storm. Every game she plays is a double-edged sword. Fans cheer, cameras flash, ratings spike, but so does the danger. Every time she steps onto the court, she risks another hit, another injury, another uncalled foul. Her body becomes a battleground for the WNBA survival. And that's the cruelest irony. The league's biggest hope for growth is simultaneously its biggest liability. Protecting her should have been non-negotiable. Instead, the league's indifference has turned her career into both a spectacle and a legal weapon. And then there's the political angle. Stephen A. Smith wasn't exaggerating when he said Trump could use this as a rallying cry. Imagine a political campaign spotlighting Clark's treatment as an example of cultural bias, unfairness, or institutional failure. Whether you agree with that framing or not, the potential is undeniable. If politics seizes this story, the WNBA won't just face scrutiny from federal agencies. It will become a talking point in the national spotlight, dragged into debates about discrimination, fairness, and identity politics. That kind of attention doesn't fade. It multiplies. The players themselves are divided. Some stand silently, unwilling to jeopardize careers or locker room relationships. Others resent Clark's rapid rise and the attention it brings. But silence becomes complicity when federal investigators enter the picture. Suddenly, players may be forced under oath, asked to confirm whether targeting strategies were discussed. Loyalty to teammates won't protect them. Fear of backlash won't shield them. Once federal law is involved, every word matters. And those admissions, once made under penalty of perjury, could unravel years of carefully maintained WNBA culture in a single stroke. And here's the terrifying truth. Once this case gains momentum, there's no easy exit. Federal oversight rarely fades quietly. Instead, it pushes until resolution is forced. That resolution could mean sweeping reforms, mandatory safety protocols, stricter officiating enforcement, cultural accountability programs. But it could also mean crippling fines, public embarrassment, and a loss of trust that takes decades to rebuild. The WNBA stands at a crossroads. Protect Clark and evolve into a true professional powerhouse, or continue down the path of denial and risk becoming a cautionary tale in sports history. What makes Clark's representation so effective is their ability to control timing. Every article, every leak, every public statement is strictly placed. The Wall Street Journal piece reframed the narrative as civil rights. Late-night television brought it into mainstream pop culture. Congressional letters escalated it into legal territory. Social media amplified it into viral scandal. Each stage wasn't an accident. It was a step in a calculated escalation designed to corner the league. The brilliance of this strategy is that by the time the WNBA reacts, the next stage is already in motion, and fans are watching all of it unfold in real time. Compilation videos of Clark taking hit after hit are spreading like wildfire, each one reinforcing perception of institutional neglect. Hashtags demanding protection trend alongside clips of injuries replayed in slow motion. The digital narrative is no longer controlled by ESPN or league PR. It's controlled by independent creators, legal analysts, and outrage fans. And once the online tide turns, no press conference or damage control campaign can reverse it. The league is drowning in a storm of its own making, and rescue feels impossible. So where does this leave us? Caitlin Clark isn't just a rookie phenomenon anymore. She has become the center of a legal, cultural, and political firestorm that may define the WNBA for a generation. What began as ignored fouls has now escalated into congressional oversight, sponsor nervousness, and a looming threat of federal investigation. Every day, the stakes climb higher. Every silence, every delay, every ignored hit adds fuel to fire. And as Clark's representation pulls the strings with masterful precision, one truth becomes clear. The reckoning has only just begun.